Oh, man, Budokai 3. This one may not be the best one in my opinion, but it is the most important one to me as a fan of Dragon Ball. As a fan of Dragon Ball games, whew, boy, wow. By the time Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 launched, it was about late 2004. I couldn't give you an exact date. I'm terrible with dates. But it was late 2004. I was in the height of playing Budokai 2. And Budokai 1, I would keep going between the two games. I really enjoyed them both. When Budokai 3 came out, I saw commercials for it on TV. I wanted this. I wanted it. I wanted it. I wanted it. It was 2004, though. I wasn't exactly old. I was a 90s brat. I was maybe a very young teenager, not even able to drive or anything like that. I was young. I was pretty young. So, the only way you'd be able to go grab things would be if your family took you. Or if you had an older brother and they took you. We used to go to Blockbuster once a week. Maybe every Friday night or something, we'd go to Blockbuster. The parents probably pick a movie out. But by this time period, by the early 2000s, Blockbuster had become like 50% movies, 50% video games. You can go over to the video game section, see a whole aisle full of Nintendo 64 games, tons of Nintendo 64 games. But if you didn't have one, you went to the PlayStation. So you went over to the next aisle and see all sorts of PlayStation games. I'd be playing tons of those. I played a bunch of most of the PlayStation 1 games that I ever played. I played from games I rented at Blockbuster. And then when the PS2 came out, I rented quite a few of those as well. I remember Crash to Insanity. My first experience with that was renting it from Blockbuster. And when Budokai 3 came out, it wasn't exactly Christmas time yet, so I had to wait to get this. I had to wait, but I still wanted to play it. And when we were driving by Blockbuster, the Blockbuster in our town, on the windows, right on the windows, is this big poster of Goku, this exact one here, with Goku with his fist pointing out, the Budokai 3 title there, and I was like, we gotta go, stop the car, we gotta go inside, and so we went inside. They had this huge aisle, this just one whole aisle, where normally was all sorts of PS2 games, there was nothing but Budokai 3, whole aisle, and they were all sold. They were all gone. Every copy had been rented. Every single one. So I'd go pick up a PlayStation 1 game or a PlayStation 2 game on the other side of the aisle. And then we'd come back next week. I'd look for Budokai 3 and they're still sold out. Every single one had been rented out. Every single one was gone. You had to be this age bracket. You had to be this certain type of age bracket to understand how this feels. Games today in the 2020s and the 2010s with your Steam computers and your digital downloads and all of that stuff, the age of this stuff, when a game comes out day one, you can easily get your hands on it nowadays. Even when you're a young 6 to 13-year-old brat, you could still get your game immediately nowadays. But back then, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when you were for that tight age bracket of like 6 to like 12 years old, that little crap age where you could do nothing, you were at the whim of technologically illiterate parents if you were unlucky, and they would not know to go to a Best Buy or all sorts of other places. They'd probably only do that for birthdays and Christmas, so that was when you were getting new games. And so if you wanted to play something, you had to rent it at a Blockbuster or something when they took you there. It was a time period where it was very difficult to get your hands on something when you were a little crap kid. And that was my experience with Budokai 3. Having such a difficult time getting my hands on this game during the first year it was out. I was not able to get it for that Christmas in 2004. I was not able to get it. All copies were sold out, and my my folks were technologically illiterate. They didn't know they could just order it and have it shipped. They didn't do that. They just checked the store. It was gone. They gave up. So you had to wait for the following Christmas sometimes to get a game, and I had to wait a while. But I finally got my hands on a copy, and when I finally played that, man, Budokai 3's story mode, when you get introduced to this, you're floating in the top of the world, you can fly all around. That was an experience that you did not get to have in Budokai 1 or 2. 1 had great cutscenes and great music and okay fighting. 2 had refined fighting, no cutscenes, but a very interesting and unique story mode. 3 gives you the best of both of them. It uses the same graphics animation that 2 had, but it refines it. 2 refined the graphics, but kept the type of fighting shtick the same as 1. Budokai 1 had heavy fighters, and you could tell heavy fighters by the way their stances, their arms would move up and down slowly. You'd have medium tier fighters where they go up and down a little bit faster. Then you'd have the short fighters where they're going boom, 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 and they move a little bit faster. But in Budokai 2, that's the same thing. They did the exact same stances and all that stuff that they existed in Budokai 1. But by Budokai 3, they started to do things interesting. Characters started to have different, unique stances depending upon who you were playing as. A character like Frieza in his final form has his arms at his side, he's staring at you all menacingly. A character like Goku would still have his normal stance, like that. Tien would be like with his arms up, and they're like the stances you see in the comics, the stances you see in the manga. Those little unique fighting stances would be those fighting stances of the characters you'd be playing as, and that was very very good. And the animation for the punching and the kicking and the combination move sets for each of these characters were started to get more unique. They started to look more unique. The animation and movesets for the characters in Budokai 2 were very much the exact same in Budokai 1. A lot of people with the same, like, the battle stances would have the same type of moveset animations when they punch and they kick, when you press your square and your triangle button and all that stuff. They have the same animations. By the time of Budokai 3, the animations were now very unique. They weren't as unique as they would get in Infinite World, but they were still unique enough for you to go, wow, this game is incredible. And you play the story mode with Goku's story mode, and then you go back in and you play Goku's story mode again, and you find there's new things to do, there's new things standing out. And if you did things in certain orders, or if you go to certain optional locations, or did it certain single optional fights, you'd unlock different things that you could do in a later thing, such as unlocking a fight with Omega Shenron very late in the game. They had a GT content in here. This is the first time they started to do that. They gave you Omega Shenron, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Those are the only GT content that you had access to. I don't think they had GT Goku in here. They didn't add more GT characters until Infinite World. Infinite World had a lot more GT characters. But Budokai 3 had some. And the transformations into Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta were given to regular Z Goku and Vegeta. You got Kid Goku. For the first time, OG Dragon Ball's Kid Goku was in here with his power pole moveset. Fantastic character, fantastic to use. This is Bardock's opening debut as a character. Cooler got brought in. Broly got brought in. Broly has his own story mode in this. It was very fun to use Broly. And Budokai 3 remains the only game where you could use Kid Oob. You could use Adult Oob as he shows up in Dragon Ball GT. You can use him in all the Tenkaichi games. But you can't use Kid Oob. This is the only game in the entire franchise that you could use Kid Oob. That's strange to me. That they still to this day have tons of games where there are unique characters locked onto a single game. I've mentioned this in my Sparking Zero rants a bunch of times, how games like Raging Blast 2 have 6 unique characters that have never been on any other console except for maybe that Dragon Ball Heroes card-based arcade cabinet in Japan. Outside of that, Raging Blast 2 is the only place where you can play as Durei and Nezu of Cooler's Armored Squadron. Salsa is playable in the Tenkaichi games. He's not. Durei and Nezu are not playable in the Tenkaichi games. You can only play as them on Raging Blast 2. If you watch the Super Android 13 movie, Androids 14 and 15, they're only playable on Raging Blast 2. They are not playable on any of the Tenkaichi games, not even Tenkaichi 3. They're not playable on Sparking Zero. You have to get Raging Blast 2 to play as them. If you want to play as Hachiak or Tarble from the OVAs, you have to get Raging Blast 2 to play as them. You can't play as them in any other game. It forces you to get this game, to use those characters, just to experience their moveset, to experience how they act and do that stuff. Kidoob in Budokai 3 doesn't really have a unique moveset. He really doesn't. He has a shockwave attack, and then he has a couple combination attacks, and he has a menagerie of basic attacks that they scattered throughout a bunch of other characters. That he's just not that unique to use, but it's just a character that you're happy to see. You're like surprised and go, hey, wow, I didn't know this guy would be here. And Oob has his own story mode. The story mode, the way Dragon Ball Budokai 3 works, is you get a series of characters, mostly heroes, with the exception of Broly, who's like a villain. And each character you can go do their story mode with. You can go do all of the major battles that they partook in, and depending upon alternate optional things you could do, you could have different fights and different things happen on different arcs. The music's still fantastic. It's still copyright Nightmare by Kenshi Yamamoto, but it's still fun. I love the music in this series. It's so much fun. And the overworld theme for the Cell arc is Embrace the Blue Sky. That's what it's called. You can go look it up if you want. That's copyrighted from Journey's Be Good to Yourself. Great song. Great song. I became a Journey fan because of this game. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you when I say a bunch of the bands that Kenji Yamamoto ripped off of, I probably would not have become a fan of those bands were it not for them being copyrighted for this series of games. Had I never heard them in here before, I probably would never have become a fan of them or even become aware of them. Stradivarius is fan-friggin-tastic, man. Like, wow. You gotta listen to Stradivarius. You gotta listen to it. You gotta listen to it. If you've ever heard of Dragon Force and you know that type of music, you know that type of power metal speed type of things, Stradivarius has that. Go listen. Go. Do it. Man, such great time. Such great time. The bonus mode in this, like how Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1 had Hercules survival mode in the Cell games, Budokai 2 had Babidi Spaceship, Budokai 3 has Commander Red's Red Ribbon Army thing, where you get to do a series of challenging fights, and this is the only place where you can increase the parameters for the other characters who don't have Dragon World levels. This is where they can gain experience and upgrade their stat parameters. I didn't talk about stats yet, but when you're doing your story mode, each time your characters can gain experience based on how well they do in battle or what they do and all that other stuff. And if they level up, they get skill points, and you can put these parameters into your various stats, such as strength for higher, stronger hitting damage, for physical attacks, ki, so that you could do bigger damage with ki control. You could charge your ki faster. HP, you'll get more HP. Defense, you could tank more damage. It's very basic RPG mechanics here, but they added that into your story mode. But the unfortunate thing is that it'll only exist for those characters in the story mode. You wouldn't be able to use these other characters like Android 17, Android 18, you wouldn't be able to use any of those. They don't have a story mode. If you wanted to do those type of stat accumulation, you would have to go to Commander Red's headquarters to do the fights and things from there. That would be the only way you can gain experience points for the other characters that don't have Dragon World mode, story mode settings. It was just very fun. I did that. I used Android 17 a lot. Android 17 is one of my favorite characters, so obviously I used him a lot, but I used Goku the most, because Goku had the highest stats. It took the least amount of time to build him up, and I made it all the way from the top, tippy top, of the earliest Red Ribbon Army fight all the way to the absolute hardest Red Ribbon Army fight. I did everything with Goku and maxed out Goku's stats. He was completely maxed out with everything, and even when he's maxed out, he's still, those final fights were still very difficult. It was a very fun time. It was very challenging, but I mastered it. Budokai 3 is an experience for me, both in terms of like gameplay, when you're playing the game, you're experiencing the game, but also in terms of how I got my hands on it. It was a time period that has these types of stories that you could tell about how you got your hands on something. The days of Blockbuster and renting games, renting movies. This stuff just doesn't happen anymore. We're not in that era anymore. And telling those stories now, it's like you become animated, you become alive, you get to reminisce about a time period when you were a lot younger. And even though it was a lot harder to get your hands on a game, you were still extremely excited when you finally got your hands on it. It's like when you're talking to a grandpa. You go to your grandpa, and he's interested in a lot of things. He might be very interested in Buck Rogers, right? You might go to his basement, and he's got this whole shelf full of Buck Rogers comics, these little 25-cent comics or whatever. And you look through them, and you're kind of mildly interested in Buck Rogers, and then he notices, he sees you, he notices that you're upset, you're interested in Buck Rogers, you're looking at his Buck Rogers things, and he becomes animated. Normally he's like very calm, very lethargic, but he looks at Buck Rogers and light just shines in his eyes. He becomes animated, and he's talking to you about Buck Rogers, and he wants to tell you all sorts of stories about how he got his hands on these comics, or how he got into Buck Rogers, and he just gets so into it. Seeing that happen to him is just so interesting to see, because it's going to happen to us someday. You know, the things that we loved as kids. When we grow up, if we still think fondly about those things, we're probably going to tell our kids or our grandkids about those things. We're going to get animated about Dragon Ball one day. We're going to get animated. We're going to just come to life in our 30s, getting so excited to talk about Goku. It's something that you don't think about till you get a little bit older. You just don't think about it. Dragon Ball for me was my grandpa's Buck Rogers. You know, that's what it's going to be for me. I will never miss an opportunity to talk about it, to tell stories about it. I try to get into the fandom of Dragon Ball, at least talk about it, or to mention it at least once a day. Dragon Ball is something that's going to be with me for life. And I'm pretty sure anybody who's ever watched this, who's made it this far into the video, you probably have something that you're just as interested in, that you get just as animated talking about, that you get so excited just to even be thinking about it again, that you get the opportunity to tell somebody else about something that you're just so interested in. That other person may not be as interested in it at all, and is just looking at you like you're some sort of madman, but you come to life when you talk about it. I appreciate the heck out of those types of things, out of those types of being interested in something. And I never want that to die out for anybody.